the interest of spending your time efficiently and so forth, we'll get started. Thank you for attending. I am Mayor Tom B, of course, and before I start, and I'm going to give you about a 5-minute introduction to explain to you how we got to where we are today. And then I'm going to turn this over to Don Angus, who is our city planner. And he's going to lay out for you the presentation with regard to Market Square. But first, I just wanted to mention a couple of people that are here. We have Mr. Greg Hawk, who is the ward council person. We have the one and the only Rhonda Williams, who is deputy mayor of the city of Canton. Of course, I want to thank Mayor Thomas Jones and always Mayor for use of the facility. Our neighborhood, our illustrious neighborhood, so beautifully. And a couple people from the school board. We got Mr. J.R. Rinaldi and Mr. Eric Resnick. Mr. Rinaldi is also, of course, as you know, Mr. Code Enforcement. I think that gets everybody that we did mention. And of course, again, Don Angus. How we got here. The development of the concept for Market Square has been an ongoing thought for many, many years. Back in 2013, when the Special Improvement District, which is an arm of the Chamber of Commerce, and it's our downtown merchants participate in that, they put together and they did a downtown plan. And they hired the urban planner, CZB LLC, and that is our person that eventually did the comprehensive plan, and that was Mr. Charles Buki. So they hired him back in 2013 to do a downtown plan. One of the ideas that came out of that downtown plan that Mr. Buki recommended then, and he's continued to recommend through the comprehensive plan and emphasized the comprehensive plan, is a need for a very vibrant and full of vitality type of downtown space in the city. All cities have great downtown parks. He says all great cities have great downtown parks. That continued onward. The SID then created a Market Square committee made up of a number of people, in the downtown area primarily. That committee met during a period of 2013, 2014, and came up with ideas and directions for what a downtown park on the Market Square site would look. The Market Square site, by the way, is again the property or the square bounded by 3rd Street Northwest, 4th Street Northwest, Market Avenue, and Ford Avenue. It is the site that was formerly occupied by the Krusty Building, and the Krusty Building was torn down in 2004. So we've had, that vacant lot over there with some improvements made to it for a number of years. But that was identified by Mr. Buki as early as 2013 as being the primary site for the location of the park. In February 2015, so again, all this, by the way, is happening before I became mayor because I didn't become mayor until January 1 of 2016. Canton City Council introduced and considered an informal resolution by which they approved going forward with the concept of a Market Square development. And that had certain segments to it, but again, it was an informal resolution, a non-binding resolution, but it indicated their support for the idea. In 2015, the city of Canton then advertised or put out a solicitation for bids for landscape architects. It's called a request for qualifications. 9 very professional firms responded to that request for qualifications. And we have also Corey Meyer-Smith, our councilwoman at Borough. And we had 9 people or 9 entities that submitted proposals. The winning proposal came from a firm, an architectural design firm in Columbus, Ohio, MKSK. The principal of that firm is Mr. Brian Kinselman. Mr. Kinselman was here earlier today, but he had to get back to Columbus, so Don is going to present what was Brian Kinselman had presented earlier. But this firm is a very, very large architectural design firm. I think they have 100 professionals in their firm, and they have done numerous projects like this, 40 to 50. They've done, the Scioto Mile in Columbus, which is probably in its 7th or 8th phase right now. So if you've ever been down to Columbus to the Scioto Mile, that is something that Brian Kinselman did. I think Brian Kinselman also designed 20 years ago the Central Park, our Central,
Plaza,
pardon?
Central Plaza.
Market Square.
Yeah.
I mean, not Market Square, but the Central Market area and so forth, and that was his design also. So he's very, very experienced in this. He came to Canton, and he has had numerous meetings with the Market Square Committee and with so many other members of the community during the period 2015 and 2016, and the work that he did. And what he does, he understands very well, having done these projects. You have to make them fit the piece of property that you have, and you have to make them fit the needs and the desires and the wants of the community. So he had a number of meetings where he gave people choices, and they put red dots up on the board as to whether they liked a stage or whether they wanted some other amenity and where they might want to locate and so forth and so on. And he and his team went through that process. And in July of 2016, they then came up with what I call both a phase 1 and a phase 2 proposal for Market Square. Phase 1 is the area within the curb lines of Market Square, again, 3rd to 4th Market to Court. And that proposed a stage, restroom, storage area, steps, hardscape, paving, grass, lighting, utilities, and so forth. The cost estimated then for that renovation, for completion of that project, was approximately $3 million. He also had an alternative proposal at the same time in July of 2016, and that was to extend Market Square, again, because one of the issues with Market Square is its size, and it's relatively small size. It is one city block, but again, it is only 200 by 200, so that is a relatively limited area to have a large downtown park. So his alternative suggestion and recommendation at that time was to essentially extend the curb lines out, and we're looking at doing it on 3rd Street, 4th Street, so that you use, for large events, you would use the entire adjacent streets to include 4th Avenue. When you take that additional space and so forth, it almost comes close to doubling the area that you would have for large events and so forth. And that's costly also, because then you have to do a lot of work relocating curbs and so forth. Those streets in and of themselves, by the way, need work. You would probably brick them, I presume, to make them pedestrian friendly and park friendly, and do some of the same kinds of hardscape that you would do inside the park. And so his estimate for that was approximately, and remains today because there are contingencies and so forth associated with this, about $2.5 million. One other idea then came to fruition and has been discussed at some length, and that is in October or November of 2016, MKSK was asked to add another consultant to the team, and that was Mr. Rex Carpenter from HKS. HKS is a design firm that is designing both a new stadium, I think, at the $150 million stadium in the Hamilton Hall of Fame, as well as all the ideas for Hall of Fame Village. And Rex Carpenter, in order to, one of the things that has been desired in doing Market Square is to tie it into the Football Hall of Fame, the Johnson Controls Football Hall of Fame. And one of the things that was discussed was some kind of connectivity. And what Mr. Carpenter came up with, and we've had those drawings, and you will see those today also, was what we call a phase 3, and that was the development of an iconic structure. And if you remember seeing this, because we had discussions in this in City Council in January of 2017, a presentation was made, and the Canton Repository also did a large story on it with a lot of photographs and so forth, probably in January of 2017. But that is the football rotunda that is on top of the Hall of Fame building itself. He proposed copying or making something very similar to that, just the seams of that football that would come together at the top. The top then had a circle in it and had falling water in it, which is a different issue that needs to be discussed today. But his proposal was, again, that was going to be 175 feet high, I think, which is higher than the record building. So this would be something that would be very significant structure. That was an estimated cost, and he also added in that design, I think, the possibility of a cafe into some of the other structures that would be on the site. And his estimate, and again, it was just a very ballpark estimate at that time, was $6 million for a phase 3. Since early 2017, again, there has been then a lot of discussions about how to proceed and the directions to proceed with regard to these 3 phases and these drawings that we had. We remained in close contact with Mr. Kinzelman of HKSK. We've had a lot of contact and communications with the Hall of Fame with regard to assisting us in moving this project forward, and also in assisting in marketing and perhaps more importantly, or most importantly, programming. Because again, an empty park is not going to work, no matter how beautiful it is, unless you have programming and people coming downtown to use it. So those discussions have been ongoing and they continue onward. We are now at the point where in July of 2018, we need to move forward and start this project if we want to get it completed for the centennial celebration of the founding of the NFL, which will occur on September 17th, 2020. So we are essentially 2 years and 1 month away from that particular date. It's an important date for Canton because, again, Canton, that is the basis and the reason why we have the Hall of Fame here in Canton, Ohio. And it is a celebration that the Hall of Fame itself is making very, very large plans for, and we in Canton will be very, very large participants with regard to events associated with that. So this is something that we want to get done for September 2020, and it's time that we proceed now because we're talking about a year, probably plus of construction to do this. The other reason that we haven't moved forward prior to this point in time is that although we had these dreams and hopes and wishes, we never had any money to pay for it. Again, we're talking about, and today we're talking about, and I've initiated a letter to City Council requesting legislation, which is pending in front of City Council right now. This legislation, by the way, is supported by the majority leader and the assistant majority leader, as well as the ward councilman for downtown Canton, to move forward and to do phases 1 and 2. And Don is going to tell you the details of phases 1 and 2, but not phase 3. Again, phase 3 is this iconic design. We have the money for phases 1 and 2, and that cost is approximately $5.5 million. The funding for that source is $1.5 million, which we have obtained in grants from the state capital budget, and that was on the basis of work done by our state legislators, and in particular Representative Scheuring, who did a lot of work to help Canton obtain that. The other $4 million, and this is really the money that we did not have previously, comes from issue 13. We took issue 13 to the voters in the May primary election. That was to increase the city's income tax from 2% to 2.5%. Of the extra 0.5%, we designated in the ballot language where certain amounts would go, and 60% of that was designated for comprehensive fund type of projects, economic development, and so forth. What Canton really needs, from my perspective as mayor, and from many people's perspective, including Mr. Boogie, who developed a comprehensive plan, fund our economic development director, and so forth. We need to grow Canton from an economic perspective. And we need to help certain core areas that are designated in it. And so funding was designed or created in issue 13. 60% of that money again goes to comprehensive development, comprehensive plan purposes, and downtown Canton is a core portion of that report or plan, and the park is a very, very central portion to the whole discussion of what is needed in downtown Canton. So we are in front of council. We are going to have a second reading on Monday night, so the same presentation we're having tonight will be given again to council members on Monday night, perhaps a little bit more abbreviated and so forth, because there's some more familiarity with it. Regarding phase 3, again, there's been a lot of discussion. Does everybody remembers phase 3? Because everybody remembers the photograph of the iconic football structure, which some people call it the shower ring with water dripping down from 175. Of course, that's a concern to everybody that's looked at it and whether that works in Northeast Ohio, or whether that's even a good idea and so forth. Again, that was one concept that was developed. We are not at this time going forward with that concept or any other concept with regard to phase 3. I have stated that the city will not use any more of its tax dollars for construction of phase 3. So therefore, in order for us to do phase 3, we need funding from some other sources. I can only tell you that we continue to have discussions concerning those funding sources, and those conversations are going on today. But as of today, we are proceeding only with phases 1 and 2, and that is the basic outline. That brings us pretty much to where we are today. I don't know, Fonda, do you have anything to add to this? You've been here actually longer than I have, and just seeing us work our way through this whole thing.
Yeah, just briefly, the mayor gave an excellent explanation of what we're attempting to do. If we're going to move the city forward, we need to think big and think bold. I would just ask as citizens that we keep an open mind, and we're certainly open for input, whether it's criticizing us or complimenting us. We're open to both. We're pretty battle-tested, if you will, but we really feel that this is a great opportunity to help move the city forward in conjunction with Hollow Creek Village. And again, we just ask you to keep an open mind because we think this is the beginning of something great for the city of Canton. And we really appreciate you all coming tonight. I wish there was triple the number here, but great things happen to small numbers. So thank you all for coming.
And that being the case, I will now turn this over to Mr. Don Angus, who is the city planner. Don.
Okay, thank you all. So real quickly, my agenda for tonight is to go over the design process that the public went through previously, to go over the park ingredients that came out of those public meetings, and to talk about those program elements that we plan to incorporate into them, which the mayor had called, phase 1 and phase 2. And finally get to the conceptual.
Make sure everybody can hear us, because if not, we've been talking to them.
So this is the site. I think we're all familiar with it. 3rd to 4th, Court to Market. It's a small site, like the mayor said. It's 200 by 200 square. So from the interior of the sidewalk space, it's roughly 1 acre. When you go to building face, you double the size. The nice thing about this square is it sits within the heart of the city, and it's tied to one of our major corridors. So from an urban design, urban planning standpoint, it's prime. Real quickly, as the mayor had went over before, the design process that went on previously, pre-2016, was about a year-long effort where there was multiple community meetings, multiple public engagement, and multiple stakeholder meetings. Those meetings, not the designer, MKSK out of Columbus, those meetings, the public determined what those kit-of parts were to be utilized in our park. Then the designer took those elements that the public said these are important to us and arranged them on the space to work with solar orientation, microclimates, traffic, and a whole litany of other things. So the designer really interpreted what the public asked for into a piece of paper. So basically the designer was a scribe. So where we are today, we're reintroducing where that phase 1 and phase 2 are and where we're going to move to and how quickly we have to move from this date in July to roughly December to be done with complete construction documents, so that way in spring we can go out and bid it, because that takes roughly like a two-month process. But the whole hope of this, we will have 2 planting seasons, because as you know, a park is different than building a structure. We have living things that we want to get cured into the ground and have a chance to mature before our actual celebration in September of 2020. So the park ingredients. Like any book, there's a beginning and an end, and there's chapters in between, a preface, and a reference guide. Parks are no different than that. Parks are no different than any other thing we would cook. There are certain prescribed ingredients that make successful parks. This isn't one man, one firm's opinion, one group's opinion. This is just documented over the series of landscape architecture when it was founded here in the United States by Olmsted, back when he developed Central Park. Items such as image and identity. And that's what we're really creating for the downtown Canton. We're creating an identity. When I was in Cleveland, we called it, the picture postcard moments. So when people leave Canton that aren't from here, they always have an image of what Canton is. We have it with the hall, but we want that same kind of image and identity downtown Canton as well. Other things such as amenities, creature comforts. A park that is just a park that you walk through, no place to sit, no place to stroll. A park that's good for both the hot days, the cold days, the winter months, the summer, spring, fall months. A park is basically good for all days, all times of the year. And that's what we're really looking to plan for. Flexible design. What does that mean? It basically means it's like this room. We can rearrange the chairs in a myriad of ways, a myriad of orientations. It's still within that same constraints of these walls, but it's flexible. It can work for the people or the events or the programs that are going on in the park. And that's what has to be done with a small little space that we have. I mean, it's not that little, but a small public park. We really have to be smart in how we design those spaces, because really the key is the way that those spaces are utilized is determined the success of the park itself. Access, not just the able-bodied, not just the middle-aged, young, old, impaired or not, physically able or not, it is a park for the entire population, and it has to be designed as such. Passive security, what does that mean? So parks are a response to the public need to get out and socialize, but at the same time, parks have to be a place where you are perceived to be safe and where you actually are safe. So things such as the way that we design a park where we don't have full hedges like you would see in England and the country estates where you can't see through it, it's a non-defensible space. The more people we could put into the park, just the carrying capacity of people itself make the park safe. So that's a big element, because we're talking about the downtown of our city, and we want people to be safe in there from morning, noon, until the end of the day. Another thing, and you can see them as all, but one interesting is number 8, reaching out like an octopus. A park isn't just a fixed place of its own. Just like how the mayor was saying that the park right now is phase 1 was defined by the inside of the grass area right now, within the sidewalks. Well, really, we're trying to grow that park to the faces of the building, and furthermore, we're trying to connect it to the tissue surrounding the park, so that way, in essence, it philosophically, psychologically, it stretches all the way to Arts and Stark, all the way down to First Lady, all the way over to the Hall of Fame. So this park isn't just one place. It has to have the tentacles. It could be the ribbon of the trees, it could be the materials that we use, it could be a number of ways, but it has to have that feeling that it connects to the whole of the city. And that's really a big one. And then lastly, there's the management and additional funding sources. Those are things that are going to go on in conjunction, simultaneously as the design. As the design evolves, the way that we manage and program the park for the future, that has to evolve as well. And it's probably, as the mayor mentioned, the most important thing. And one thing I can say from a personal experience, the way that we program this park can't take away the other programming within the city. We don't want to pull the great things that are going on, First Fridays, or the great things that are going on up at Arts and Stark, and pull all those program elements here. We want to be somewhat diversified, so we build upon the good things that are here, and I think that's really key. So when you look at the program and the spatial requirements within the park, you kind of can see that this inner box, that's roughly that phase 1. That's roughly the $3 million kind of project. There's a lot of stuff that goes on to create a park. It's not just laying sod. All the utility work, all the excavation, all the geotechnical work that goes into it, that's all factored into it. But then when we extend out to Court Street 3rd and 4th, how large the park gets. The thing is there may or may not be curbs along the inside of 3rd and 4th. It needs to be seamless, but we're going to allow for vehicular traffic to go through 3rd and 4th at certain times of the day, when there's not activities, but we want to have the ability to shut down so that park can grow that much larger. And I think that's going to be really important with the way that we utilize ground plans. And any of you all that have been to Europe have seen it, or if you've been up to Cleveland or Cincinnati, some of those parks, or if you've been to Pittsburgh's Market Square, they removed all the curbs in their downtown PNC Plaza area. And it is just a single ground plane, and cars, vehicles, bicycles all share that same space. And it's kind of what we're going to, is to create a space for all, not just for pedestrians, not just for cars, not just for people, but for all modes and all groups.
So I don't know if you want to go back to that slide and show them the components over on the right-hand side of the pavilion and so forth.
Well, we can go over the spatial analysis. So back during the design process, MKSK, looked at the park and how they broke down the park. It's almost like a pie graph, if you will. How much space could be allocated to each of these program elements and still have the whole function. So Performance Pavilion, roughly 600 square feet, close to 2,000 square feet. And that was in that lower left. A water element about 500 square feet. And there's so many different ways to design water elements, but we already have some water in downtown in Central Plaza right now. This is a misting fountain that's incorporated into it. It's a fountain that can go much longer in the season, and it's a whole different effect. Restroom storage area, 500 to 1,000 square feet. This is probably 2 to 4 stalls for him and her, and then probably a family bathroom. You know, this is not meant to be a bathroom facility that's going to serve the droves of individuals that are here on like a hall event or the Centennial where there's thousands and thousands of people here. It's for the everyday kind of use. You know, when these big, massive events occur, there will still be a need for the portable toilets, but that's going to be incorporated into the design where it's placed so that way it's just not plopped down in an indiscriminate spot. Shaded seating, very important, but we don't want to get overly tree canopy heavy and make it a complete shaded park. There's enough shaded area here where you have shelter and you have, you know, a more intimate kind of space. That's between 150 to 400 individuals can be under movable chairs and tables. So it's a sizable space, but yet it doesn't dominate the entire park. And then lastly, public gathering. Any city has to have a place for public gathering. And this is probably one of the biggest components of it and most flexible components of it. So it goes from about 10,000 square feet to 25,000 square feet with the two phases combined together. And that's roughly at its max, probably 3,000 square feet comfortably. But any estimate when we designers look at like the space that a person occupies, that can even go up even further. So it's a very compact program, very intensive program, but a very exciting program. They often say the smaller spaces are the harder ones to design. So these are some of the project and program elements that are incorporated into the park that I loosely talked about earlier. And once again, these aren't the designer saying, you must have these. He's giving his professional opinion from experiences in the past, but it's really what the public was looking for. And any and all these I echo as being critically important. Performance area. This isn't just, you know, the hat show or the place where the band comes out, you know, this massive orchestra. It could be the 1- and 2-person guitar event going on. And it's going to have a structure over it so that way it'll protect from the elements. It'll be functional so that way a performer, from a band to a musical group to you name it, all they have to do is bring their equipment, plug in, and they're good to go. Lighting, plug in, good to go. So all the infrastructure that's required for performances will be accommodated within the structure. You know, the exact physical form of it yet is still evolving. But once again, with any of these things, or even like the mayor mentioned, that iconic big structure, it's really a placeholder for the idea of what the form is to be. A central gathering space, very important. You know, this picture here is Market Square. It's a 100% hardscape. It's kind of nice, but you know, it's too hard. You know, we're looking for a mix of hardscape and softscape, so that way it can be our front yard. And many of our residents of downtown, it will be the front yard for the entire community. Lighting. Lighting is not just the street lights that aid people to see. Lighting needs to be dramatic. Lighting needs to be changing. Lighting needs to have like a life of its own and artistic expression within the park. And that's something that I think has gone through the design process to date, but it's something that's going to evolve even further. And lighting is probably one of the sexiest, least often utilized pieces of design that we have at our disposal because it's cheap, and the beauty of it is you can change it. And with the way that LED has progressed today, you can program the lighting. So this will be a very interesting part of the park for our future. Public restrooms. These slides are very utilitarian in form. To me, the restroom storage structure, which is going to be placed within the park, is a needed element. But the thing about that structure, since it's small, it needs to have its own kind of ornate kind of artistic approach to it as well. So it's just not this square box stuck in this lush park. So it's going to take a very unique form. Don't really know what it is, but there's some crazy benchmarks out there for us to look at. AV support, I kind of touched on that a little bit before about the band stage or the pavilion, that we have to have all those, it's plug and play, ready to go. You know, kind of like I walked in this room tonight, Marilyn had set up, I just plugged in my computer and we're good to go. We need to have that there as well. Additionally, there's some audio-visual kind of elements that are proposed for the park, a large LED board, smart kiosk perhaps. I mean, we are the Johnson Controls Hall of Fame city, and Johnson Controls is all about smart cities, so I think some of those elements are going to be incorporated in the park, and we really should try to investigate that. This boss, this dining grove element, it's basically a grouping of trees. You know, it's not just sticking a lollipop in the landscape, it's arranging these trees, that way they create a very nice canopy. You know, when we select the trees, it's not putting in a tree that has broad branching structure, it has more of an upright structure, so that way it really takes the form that we really want to have, because, you know, plant material is very artistic and very sculptural in its own self. So this boss or this dining room, it's going to be a really fun, nice space. But any park can't just be lawn and trees. You have to have some of that color. You have to have that change throughout the season. If it's lawn and trees, the lawn goes brown, the leaves fall, you're done. Berries in the winter, you know, perennials in the spring and fall, so the changes. So it's a constantly evolving park. But we don't want it to be this park that becomes a botanical garden where they're out there, you know, this army of people trying to weed and deadhead plants. It's got to be a very low maintenance landscape, and it's easily to be done. I mean, MKSK has perfected the plant palette, so this is an important thing, but yet it shouldn't be one that scares us off, that we're talking about a variety of plant material. And then any park would not be complete without site furnishings. But to me, you know, benches and trash cans aren't enough. Charging stations for a phone, Wi-Fi connectivity. We're promoting bicycle usage in the city. We have to have places to park these bikes. We probably should have a place to repair a flat tire. I mean, those are the kind of things that we have to think outside of. And then, once again, tables and chairs, but not fixed. When it's fixed, it's prescribed. We have to have the ability to move tables and chairs around, because people will sit where they want to sit, not where they're generally told to sit. So that's a very important part of it. And that's another reason why we're going to need that storage facility along with the restroom, so that we can store some of these chairs when it's not in heavy demand. Here is the conceptual plan of the Phase 1 and Phase 2 park, as that came out of those public meetings and public process back in 2016. You can see it takes kind of a sculptural element from the air with that football kind of motif. You know, once again, you know, we're trying to incorporate, you know, history and culture of a certain element into the park, but it's not just going to be football dominated. There's many more stories and many more things to talk about in Canton other than football. But football is a nice orienting kind of factor, especially when we're trying to connect our downtown, the birthplace of pro football, and the actual hall itself. So it takes on a thematic approach. Within this, you can see the legend grove that they just coined like a phrase, with the bosk of trees. You know, it calls for iconic art, calls for a massive green walk of fame. The laces are the actual misting fountain, the stage and the restroom, all kind of orchestrated together to make kind of a complete picture. So it's almost like a paint by numbers. All of them together, you know, give you that nice whole. But the one thing to take notice on is that the park can be accessed from any corner, any street within that downtown quadrant. You know, so there's not like one way in, one way out. And like any park should never have, there should never be a dead end. The park should circulate through and through and have many different experiences, because many people use spaces different ways. And then in the lower left, you see this little eyebrow-like line, which is called the video screen. This is a very large video screen that we can program many different ways. We can have Sunday, Monday night football watch parties. You could watch, we could have whatever night, movie night for kids. It could be the draft. It could be whatever else celebration going on. It's unlimited the way that we could program the screen. But that's what's important. We have to come to the sense of who and when we will program that. Quick little illustrations. Once again, the physical form. This is not the exact form that it's going to take. What we're really trying to describe is there will be a stage on a plinth with raised steps to seating. a canted public space, so that way it drains. So it creates somewhat of a amphitheater-like space. And a restroom facility adjacent to it. And you'll notice the little kind of dash lines. You know, these are other opportunities that we can put historic kind of elements, historic kind of happenings, a timeline yet to be determined into the ground plan itself. But the big, really, takeaway on that is it's a combination of a brick or unit paver-like ground plane, not asphalt, not just plain concrete that's scored. It's going to have a stone or a paver approach, and then low maintenance ground cover. Here's an image of that misting fountain. This is a student-proof fountain system that started probably in the late 80s at Harvard University, called Tanner Fountain. And it was one of the coolest things I walked by every day. And it ran year all the way throughout the year. The neat thing about a mist fountain, mist moves. This doesn't just stay in one place, it moves, it grows, it cools. You can project light on it. And these seats that are the laces that help, work with the actual functionality of the misting fountain itself. These are either glass or Luan kind of benches that will glow throughout the night. So it's really going to cast some of that, that illuminated kind of fun. You also see these steels, these digital steels that are going. They're basically large kiosks. They're LED front and back that can be programmed. It can be let your mind run wild. And this is where we look for the Hall of Fame and for the local community, what those digital messages will be. It also could be marketing. There could be ads up there, which helps to take care of the maintenance of the park as well. So it's just a placeholder of what we want to have, and then you see the big video screen on the back. It does two things. It kind of hides some of the parking garage behind it, but then it really activates more programming. And this is something that not many cities have in their downtown, but a lot of cities are trying to get. I don't know if we'd be one of the first, but we'd be right up there. Because I know we tried doing it in Cleveland and we weren't successful in getting it in. So it'd be a nice thing for Canton to have. And then lastly, this sculpture element, to really tag this as Canton. I don't know how many of you have ever seen the Script Cleveland signs that we put up there. I mean, for a very low cost, it's branded so many ways. I think we could do it bigger and better and help brand the park itself. And then just another view of those digital steels in the park itself. So when you look at it from this stage, it's a lot of elements choreographed together into a kind of comprehensive design. But we're not just building a park just to build a park. As city planner, as the mayor, as many of the council members here, and many other individuals that have been involved with this project before I ever came here. Excuse me. This park is meant to be an economic catalyst for downtown, and that's really one of its biggest intent. Yes, we want to have this great ceremonial space for the 2020 celebration and many events on that, but there's academic and many studies that have proven that when you build parks, economic development really does come from it. And that's what we're very hopeful. As you know, there's the vacant lot right next door, there's the Rankard building, there's vacancies around. So we really call this, and to use the consultant's word, this is a beachfront. We're creating a beach where the development can occur adjacent to it. And that's what we're really trying to do is, connect Court Street, perhaps all the way down to First Ladies, all the way up to 6th. They're really making a larger pedestrian mall and build on the success it already has, with the skate rink adjacent to it. So this is really meant to be a catalyst for downtown and a signature piece for us to really be proud of. Pricing, as the mayor said, phase 1, roughly $3 million. That was an architect's estimate back in 2016. Of course, costs have inflated, but with that estimate back then, it included a 20% design and construction contingency. So it's not all factored out yet. There's a lot of work to be designed or to be done. But when you take that $3 million phase 1, $2.5 million phase 2, that includes all the basic work that needs to be done with the park from the ground plane. But some of the big ticket items, roughly $500,000 for the stage, roughly $300,000 for the restroom facility. Those prices are going to move and change but we have a fixed budget that we're working towards. And, there's going to be some Rob, Peter, pay Paul kind of things so that we would get all the elements in here. The fountain system, roughly $230,000. These seals, roughly $180,000. Once again, cost based on their past experience in doing projects like this, but there's a lot of movement that has to be done to shore it up. From this sign, which I think is going to be a lot less than that dollar amount, but roughly $100,000. And it's just placeholders so that way we know we can afford all the pieces. Here, once again, is the plan, the overall plan. You can see the primary phase one as it was. I mean, after we leave this meeting today, there is a phase one and phase two back in 2016. Really now, this is our project. This is the base project. The Central Park, the third, the First Street, and the Court Street streetscape. And you can see associated dollars with that. And then the big thing that's coming in as part of phase two, which is that large LED screen. And then we talked about the future phase. The iconic structure that was proposed post this original design, seen on the left, the large fountain element. It is not part of this phase or part of this project. However, if that funding becomes available from the outside source, if that design evolves into something that can work, we are planning with the consultant that we have currently, whatever were to come out of that phase three, we can accommodate in that park. We will make it work, and we are working hand in hand with the HKS and MKS, these two design firms that are involved in design projects in Canton and the Hall of Fame. They are working together. So there is going to be a dialogue. So when that day comes, it could be next year, it could be 5 years from now, we can accept a large iconic structure. And I'm in the belief that our park on its own, phase one and two that we're showing today, it's iconic in itself. It's transformative in itself. To me, this is like putting the earrings on prom queen. She's still pretty. It's still going to work. It's just that extra accessory. So when that happens, if it doesn't happen, the whole park doesn't fall apart without a phase three. But when it does, like you see the chandelier that we put in Cleveland, it just accessorizes and adorns what we already have, a good thing. And I hope that does happen. But its form will definitely morph. And who knows what that form will be, because it's more of an artistic gesture than anything. So, with that, here's the timeline again. That's our little presentation on phase one and phase two, and where we've gone, where we've come, and where we're heading to. And I just open up for any questions that you may have. Please.
On the map, if you go back to the overview, there was a rectangular structure on the west side of Court Street in the parking lot between Arcadia and Luca. And I was wondering what that is.
That's a ghost. So really what this is illustrating, as you know right now, adjacent to it, there's a Lincoln building, that's a vacant lot. It's just saying that, that is a building opportunity. Adjacent to that area, if there is multiple parcels, once again, it could be a build opportunity. And that's all it is. It's nothing planned, but my desire is to see that lower left one happen. I think everybody's here. Please.
So you were talking earlier about accessibility. I didn't see any ramps or anything that people in wheelchairs or people in walkers could get up and
You
down.
won't in these high-level bird's eye kind of illustrative, but I shouldn't say it's a given. It is a given that they are all going to be incorporated.
Okay.
It may even be, because this is a conceptual drawing, it may be there might not be any curb at all. It might be a ground plane and you deal with traffic control with other means, trees, bollards, X, Y, Z. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but accessibility, it's a requirement.
Okay.
And it's a given.
All right. So like somewhere in between, like somebody in a wheelchair could end up in the middle of the green. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the green itself should be accessible. A lot of turf areas, if you wheelchair bound or walking impaired, the type of turf that you use is a big factor in that. And with this being expect to be a very heavily trafficked green space. We're not going to be using that Kentucky, the type of turf you would see in a front lawn. It's more akin to like the turf that you would see in a golf course, that you can just beat it up and you can use it and use it and use it, and it works. Yes.
I'm going to throw kind of a different spin on this, and it's nothing I haven't said before, just say it here now. I'm not opposed to doing some things down there, but I think it's a mistake to overdevelop it. I think the more stuff you put there, the less flexibility it has, the less small d democratic the space is, and the less things that it'll accommodate. And I appreciate you throwing out cities like Cleveland and Cincinnati, and I'm going to add one more, and that's Akron. Because I've been to all those cities and I've been to their parks. And the difference is that all of those cities have a lot more green space downtown than Canton does. For Canton, really, this is pretty much it. You talk about Cleveland, there's a lot of green space, and Public Square was just redone, and I know you're probably part of that, and that made even more green space. And but one of the most beautiful pieces of ground in Cleveland is actually Mall C, where the free stamp is. And there's nothing there. And why it's beautiful is because people can just use it for whatever they want, and they do. And that's kind of what the beauty of this is now. When I think about all the things that I've been to in the last year to 18 months on that property, it's been the Italian Festival. It's been when the students organized the demonstration against gun violence. It's been the Blues Fest. It's been First Friday. It's been any number of things that space currently accommodates well and flexibly because there's nothing else there. And the more stuff you put on there and overdevelop, and I know Skylark has program on Sundays where she feeds people. The more stuff you put there, the less flexibility it's going to have, and the less opportunity that those festivals are going to have to maximize that space. And the problem in Canton, unlike Cleveland, Akron, and Cincinnati, is that all of those cities have a lot of green space downtown, and we don't. So I am personally much less concerned with the needs of the Hall of Fame and Johnson Controls than I am the needs about our citizens and my neighbors who would use that for something and really don't have any other place to organize. And the other question that I have is, I kind of like the idea of going down Court with a mall. But I think you have that backwards. I think the Court Mall should be first, because I think that would help dictate what happens here. And I don't know that that's even been thought out. I think that this piece of property has, people have just had their eyes on it for a long time for development, and there are constituencies for every one of these things. I just need to say it again.
Well, I don't
that
agree
that this needs to be done very carefully.
So the green here and the original green space, it's the same. It's just reorganized. The square footage of open green space that we currently have in that football shape are the same square footage, roughly.
Then why? When you put things there and you build structures there, that takes up green space. You're talking about taking that parking lot that's between there and Arcadia and adding that to it. But if you took that parking lot and did something there to pave over it with grass or some other surface other than asphalt, there would actually be more space there. So I hear what you're saying, but that's not exactly true. That's not an apples to apples comparison, because you're actually adding to the space. This is a lot of money.
Hang on a second. This is a public meeting, and I appreciate it. This is not enough school board, but a little amount of time to discuss. Allow allow some other people to ask questions and make comments if you don't have
Yeah,
any.
my hand's up.
It's just a continuing dialogue at this point, and this is the purpose for everybody to participate.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, but before I give you, I'm just going to make a statement. The idea of this is to tie something to the Hall of Fame. We don't want to let go of that, okay? The question I have is, so part of his argument doesn't even come up, okay? But that's my argument. You get your argument. When it's completed, phase 2, will there be parking on 3rd and 4th?
There will be parking on Third.
There will be.
It may not be the same amount of parking currently, but there will be allocated space for parking. But once again, the intent is for the larger events to close that down, so during large events,
So that's why you take the curbs off.
perhaps.
And I love the screen. The screen can do a lot for young people. So that's, I'm done with
Yes, please.
that. Thank you.
First thing, phase 3, forget about phase 3, that's insane. But the other things is that what you have up there, the misting, I realize why you have to possibly do that. Nice warm day, little kids are running around, whoever, in the mist. Wind comes up, people are sitting there watching whatever concert might be going on. Next thing you know, the mist is blowing over on the people that don't particularly want the mist on them.
And we do have the ability to shut it down at any point as well. So it does have that flexibility to close, say it's a big X concert, don't want it because they have some other light show, they want the attention focused there. We can just easily turn it off and let it on. And that's probably what's going to occur. So I hear you.
One more thing. Have you counted the parking spaces you're going to lose?
Yes.
And how many do you have?
Well, it depends, but the thing about the parking, we have parking there, but we also have parking garages directly across the street, adjacent to it, open parking lot side. So I don't necessarily see it as a loss of parking there. It's just moving parking from that lot to an adjacent lot.
Is that parking going to be free?
I can't answer that myself.
Okay, so somebody's going to make some money for parking.
But what's wrong with that? Can't we all make a living?
We're going to maintain the garage. If I own the garage, I got to charge. Hey, you can park an aisle away.
Nobody go to his parking garage. We're not here to make money, we're here to enjoy the...
No, the reality of life, if somebody builds a parking garage, it isn't free. Otherwise, it comes out of taxes. And that raises taxes. Nothing's free.
I think the concept of the stage, when you have like a blues fest and you got to close Market Avenue, I think that's a great idea to put the stage, incorporate that into the park, because now you don't have to close your main thoroughfare through town. I mean, that's a great idea. Great idea.
Good. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's a great idea too.
I think it's smashing.
Yeah. You've done your homework, and I see what you're saying a little bit, but that is the same amount of green space. Those steels, to me, would be the best thing ever, because you can incorporate the schools and show off what the schools are doing. You could use the schools from out of Canton City. You could incorporate what's happening in all the school districts, tie those. That's what brings people down here, when their kids are performing. So I think it's gorgeous, and it's exciting.
There's a really weird thing, it's called tactical urbanism. So tactical urbanism is this big, silly kind of word, and you see it in like New York and Boston and different cities. Crosswalks now have a camera, and you can be, and everybody just stands there in a crosswalk, kind of like, I gotta wait my turn. All of a sudden, that picture's shooting itself on the screen. So there's the flexibility of the park, so that way it doesn't become a dated green space. It's really important. And when I think about myself versus my kids, I remember my grandpa called TV the stupid box. I now look at these iPhones and things as being this technology I don't even get. But the things that they can do and the things that they want, it's a different world. And we're trying to make sure that we incorporate that in the park. So once again, it's just not for my generation. the mayor's generation or my kids, it's for the next generation who use and function spaces totally different than I don't even get from when I went to grad school or went to design school. So it has to have that flexibility to grow with time.
Plus your stage, with a small group, a large group, you will invite all different kinds of
The
theater.
stage,
You know, that's so exciting.
The consultant saying today, one of his comments, that a stage in Lexington, Kentucky, when there's not band performances or something, they do 3-on-3 basketball.
Very cool.
There. It's undercover. They do hoops up and through in there. So it should be unlimited. Yes, ma'am.
I wonder, right now we've got green space, and to everyone's credit, that is our only green space. And we, I've been involved with groups that have used the green space, and I appreciate it being there. But every time I'm there, it just seems like it's just a square of grass. And if it just had a little bit more to it, like when I see around there, it blends it in with everything. And, we might have lost a little bit of green, maybe, but it looks so much nicer. I would think any event that we had there would look so much nicer if it was surrounded by all these, nice amenities. And one of the things I like most is that Canton, that piece of art. We're over on 4th Street, and I don't know if people are supposed to climb, but I swear the most beloved
You should.
The most beloved piece of art in the city that everybody I see takes pictures with is one of the 11, the one that's on the corner of Cleveland and 4th and Draft. Nobody, when I'm at the Fleer, nobody can go by that without everyone piling around it and getting pictures taken.
So the side story to that is, I was in Cleveland prior to the RNC coming. And one day we looked out, and we're like, we always stand here at City Hall and we look out at the lake. The city's behind us. So those script Cleveland signs that we put up, it was really to turn the view, give something people to shoot a picture from, and it went viral. Destination Cleveland, which is like the welcome wagon of the city, they had this contest to send your photos. Those photos people took climbing up and down, they were worried, the lawyers were worried about, the legality, you're going to fall, blah, 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 all that stuff. These photos were in Thailand and Russia and the West Coast. And all of a sudden, Cleveland, which many of us, I being a Cleveland, stake in the lake, we live with that. It's this whole different perspective of how we're viewed outside. All of a sudden, think about it when you go there. You view the city certain ways. We even set up the script Cleveland signs so you can view our steel heritage. We're not embarrassed of it. It's the same thing when we put this Canton sign. We're going to come to a great lengths to get that exact spot. So when it's put there, that's the Clark Griswold moment of everybody. And it just goes viral across the country. And the hall is still going to be our identity of Canton. But now all of a sudden we got Canton and our skyline, which we have a very attractive skyline, very attractive buildings. That's going to be a new picture postcard of the city. And I think this branding, let's be real. This park is going to be great. But we're also trying to bring folks that aren't in love with Canton, don't want to come to Canton, or haven't thought about coming to Canton, and those stigmas that go out there, it's not safe. Well, you hear all those narratives. I heard it from my city. We're trying to prep them to come back into the downtown and rediscover what gem we really have here. And that's another thing that we're going to be doing subliminally with this park. It's reintroducing the city to the entire region. So that Canton sign, see it cool, thing to climb on, it's branding us outside of the region. So, yes, please.
Yeah, that's sort of what you said just now is sort of why I think you mentioned a timeline on that walk around the green. I think that's a phenomenal idea because there are so many things to love about Canton and a great history here. And I want people to come for the Hall of Fame and come to our city and be like, okay, yeah, there's football themed art and that's awesome. I love our football themed art, but I want there to also be art that makes them think, wow, Canton is a really cool place. There's so much cool stuff that's happened here, and really engage with our history too, and come and be surprised by that.
And I think it's important too because the Hall of Fame and they're investing in youth fields, which is a great thing. My son just went up to Cooperstown and competed up there. You think about Cooperstown, it's Baseball Hall of Fame. You don't realize the city it has. And their connectivity they put a train, a small gauge train that goes from the dream parks, the ball fields, to the downtown. So connectivity is something they thought about, and they're doing very well. I mean, he was there for a week, this competition. There's 148 teams there, and their families. The money that generates, the connectivity that it drove people downtown. they're eating at hot dog stands and just the things that we have here and actually done better. That's what this is going to be. And Cooperstown doesn't have this cool space downtown. I bet you they wish they did. So yeah, it's going to be have the football, but there's so many stories to tell. And the connectivity between us and that lineage of football, it's huge. And I just see the Hall of Fame as a great thing. And listen, I left Cleveland. I was a city planner there, loving my job. I'm a Clevelander. I said, Canton's got stuff going on down here. And the Hall is just the muse to do so many more bigger, better things. That's just the thing. My wife could give a rat's less about going to that Hall of Fame and looking at football memorabilia. But she's going to go there with me, but she'd rather go into downtown and discover and spend money and buy a purse and all. And that's the drive. So that's my segue. Yes, Mr. Hawk.
I've been downtown for 20 years, right? I stuck my hand in my own pocket, pulled out money, invested in a small business. Been here 20 years. It's been a wonderful experience. When I came down here 20 years ago, that block stunk. It smelled bad. You could smell it all over downtown. The back wall collapsed at one point in time. It was a mess. Downtown was a mess. There were wine bottles and planters. There was bums sleeping under the trees. It was horrible. But when I see how far we've come and the things we've done and what this brings and what this adds, I'm thoroughly impressed by this plan. It's wonderful. It's what we've needed all along. It's what, in 1963, they envisioned that possibly the original Central Plaza would work out and do. Wasn't built big enough, wasn't quite done well enough, wasn't used well enough, but it still was a key. I've watched all this stuff happen and evolve. This is something we need. I think this is wonderful. We're hooking into the arts. That Canton sign's amazing with using the McKinley Monument as the A as the football. You know, you've got all these wonderful things that start incorporating other people to make them come to downtown and see what's going on. This is impressive. I can support it 100%.
And remember this park design, it's Canton's design. We have that's something we just can't lose on. The community of Canton has designed this. Once again, MKSK is the scribe. So
it's amazing.
Yes, please.
As you were talking about the design process, did the folks here or with the design firms take a look? There are a couple of cities that have come to mind that I have spent some time in that did things like this and have made themselves attractive and in a general sense and have gotten activity in their downtown. One of them is Madison, Wisconsin, which of course has the advantage of being a flash to the big university, and the other is Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, Grand Rapids is a bigger city. It's it's bigger than Akron, but still they did this kind of thing, and they made the center of Grand Rapids really attractive, and they have a lot of people living downtown now. Are those cities that they may have looked at?
And many more have been factored in the equation. You know, pure cities of similar size is always where you start from. But the whole intent is that this is going to be the front yard of many more residents of the downtown. So even Des Moines, Iowa, slightly larger for downtown. So we're just mentioning city after city that have these great public spaces. And to your point, we can't lose of our green space because it is the democratic space. If I'm from Boston, our Central Plaza is 100% solidly paved. It's not necessarily the material that's on the ground, it's just having a place to congregate. And I think that they're doing justice to accommodate all those factors, open space versus program space. But once again, we want to program this. I'd like to see yoga going out there. I sure as heck ain't going to be doing it, but I'd like to see yoga going out there. So, please.
I did do my little research, so I make sure I say it exactly how I want to say it. As being a part of downtown and a business owner down here, I've had a lot of people ask me over the last year about my opinion of the original proposal, not phase 1, phase 2, but phase 3. And I'll have to admit, I'm not a fan of phase 3. I don't know why. Maybe I just don't understand it quite yet. But with my art studio, I specifically specialize in Canton's history. And people come to my studio constantly talking about Canton's past and what they remember about Canton. And I think what my favorite part about this design is we're right in the middle of the arts district where all these amazing artistic things are going on, but currently the green space as it sits now kind of looks like we gave up. And it just is a constant reminder of what used to be there, and people, oh, well, they demolished another thing. I think if we did something cool and artistic like this, it wouldn't be a constant reminder of, you know, bad past as something that got demolished. And it blends into the art district.
Yeah, I just think it's spectacular. I just think it's another evolution of the city taking that next step forward and reinventing itself in its downtown. That's
I just have one more statement.
Okay.
I'm amazed at how good you made the storefronts look all over the place. Congratulations to whoever's doing that. I know it's the arts district or whatever it is, but it doesn't look dumpy.
Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, it's come up almost every month. It looks better. Looks better. And I drive. I don't live downtown, but I come downtown, and I like what I see. Good. So whoever it is does it, I give them applause.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to ask a practical question. If the green space is lower than everything else around it, how do you keep it from flooding
So it's
when there's lots
canted.
of rain?
It's actually not the entire green space isn't depressed into the ground. It's canted at an angle. And there'll be a series of trench drains down at the lower end, very decorative kind of trench drains that'll take the water. We don't want it flooding. Yeah, we don't want the grass turning into a mud pit. So
That's other kinds of events that might come in for that.
yeah, a warrior dash downtown.
To piggyback on what Mandy was saying, have you considered offering local artists the chance to like design the letters, the CANTON? I mean, you could divide that 100,000 over 6 artists, and I'm sure they would appreciate it.
I can't say that I think that's a bad idea at all. I do know that we're in a time constraint for this process to get it out. It's something that I definitely can reiterate. But for local artists, there was an RFQ solicited for the Altman campus. It's a call for artists right now for an entire wayfinding and place making initiative. So I, as a city planner, definitely want to promote the arts, and that's one instance where we did. To this, I can't say I've really thought that far ahead. I mean, getting to this point now, moving on is a big thing, but you know, we definitely can have that conversation. Absolutely. After all, it is our park. Yes, ma'am.
One other question, it really doesn't have to do with this design, but as a planner, there have been times, even with the green space as it is right now, that more than one group of people want to use it at a time.
Good.
And, you know, once it starts looking like this, it's going to become even more popular. My thought is, I mean, I know we're limited by our space in downtown, but if at any time there becomes an opportunity to get some smaller satellite green spaces.
Pocket parks, like.
Yeah, so that people that want to have their events, if there's a smaller event, that there's more options, because it's just sad when
You're 100%, million percent accurate. This is just a piece of the bigger tissue of all of downtown Canton. This isn't where we start and stop. You know, Court Street needs to be a pedestrian mall on steroids, and there's green spaces that are tucked away at First Ladies that aren't even really totally acceptable. If we run that Court Street down, all of a sudden we're tying that in, and it's coming up to the skate park, and then it's tying into this. So there's opportunities abound. Even the 6th Street District is looking at opportunities. So this is the beginning. This isn't the culmination of a lot of efforts, and this is where we kind of end and roll up our sleeves and go to bed. So it's bigger and greater. So if anything else, I have your contact information. I can send out information to you. If you need a card for myself, I'm at the 6th floor, City Planning, City Hall. Come see me any day. If I'm in there, I'm in there. I'm usually running around, but the dialogue isn't completed.
And we know your time is valuable. We appreciate your coming down tonight. We thank you very much. We're trying to keep this to an hour or so. We're running just a little bit over. So again, appreciate your thoughts. Get in touch with Don with ideas that you may have. And we are going to hopefully, and I anticipate that we will move this forward through City Council, and that we will move into the final design stages with our firm. And Don will be very, very intimately involved in that whole process. And we will keep moving this forward. We want to look at Old Avenue as a pedestrian walk-through area. We want to look at 3rd and 4th Streets in that manner. We want to keep extending and keep making improvements in the city.